Hello, everyone. I am Kara Bunde-Dunn, the host of the Energetics podcast. Today, I am thrilled to welcome a very special guest to the Energetics podcast. Rebecca Rosen is a world-renowned spiritual medium, author of 4 transformative books, including her latest book, What's Your Heaven? She's a true pioneer in the world of intuitive guidance and spiritual connection. Rebecca has dedicated her life to helping others connect with their loved ones in spirit and live a more fulfilled and energetically aligned life. She is also my go-to medium and mentor, whether she knows it or not. And so I am so honored to have you on the podcast. Welcome to the podcast, Rebecca.
Thank you. This is so much fun. I love being here.
Yes, I'm so happy you're here. Okay, I have so many fun stories about things that you've taught me, whether you've known it or not. But I would love for you to share how your mediumship abilities awakened within you and then how you started using them to help other people. And we'll start with that if that's all right.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm laughing because there's a fly flying around right now, and I just got off a group reading saying your dad's going to come as a fly.
Oh my gosh. Hi,
I
Dad.
know. And I'm like, here he is. Okay, that's so appropriate. So if we see something buzzing around. So how did I start? So this was something that found me. I was 19. I didn't grow up in a household where we talked about paranormal stuff, psychics, none of that. And so I was going through just kind of what I call a dark night of the soul. My dad had attempted suicide. And, 10 years before that, my grandmother had taken her life, his mom. And so I was away at college and I was being sheltered. My parents were trying to protect me, but I'm an empath and I was feeling everything going on at home. And so I turned to, it was called sleep eating. It was kind of food was my drug of choice to numb my pain.
Yeah.
And so I would sleepwalk at night. And this went on for 6 months. And I would just seriously, it's like a nightmare because you are sleepwalking and eating. Then you wake up and you're like, well, I have no control. What is going on?
Yeah.
And so I was a mess. And so I turned to journaling as a way to process out some of my thoughts and feelings. And one day, this is what changed everything. I was at a bookstore and my dead grandmother, who took her life 10 years before, started talking to me through my journaling. And I thought I was losing my mind. And so for an hour, she dragged my hand across a page. It came out so fast. I had so many pages of information. And she said, look, I'm here in response to your cries for help. And I want to help you heal yourself from the inside out. And I know you think you're crazy. So call your dad and ask him these 3 things and you'll know it's real. And so, of course, I ran out of the bookstore, called my dad. And sure enough, the things she shared, nobody knew but him. So that was when I was like, wow, I don't know what's going on, but I'm tapped into something. And it was in response to prayer. And, I grew up in a Jewish household, so I believed in God, but I wasn't religious.
Mhm.
And so, anyways, from that day forward, I started working with my grandma in spirit and my guardian angel. And I met them through my automatic writing in my journal. And they helped me heal myself from the inside out. And with that, they said it was 18 months. This was not overnight. Okay. But
Yeah.
they gave me like a mind, body, spirit protocol on what to do. And that is really my first book, Spirited. It's like a self-help guide for people who are trying to find their own inner, guidance. And so they gave me this whole thing, but they said, if you do the work, you're going to find your soulmate. And they gave me his name. They called him Ryan. They said the clue, you'll know it's him. It's a rose. And they told me his birthday, 9/24. So I want you to keep in mind, this is back in 1997 to 1999. Okay. So this is pre-Facebook and
Yes.
Instagram, and you can't research people, right? Okay. So I'm like, I don't know where this came from, but this is crazy. So long story short, I was healthy and whole, and I was getting an internship that summer in Chicago in advertising. And on my drive from Gainesville, Florida, where I was at school, to Chicago, that fell through. And I always say man plans and God laughs. I'm like,
Totally.
okay, right? It's not according to what I thought was going to happen, but I'm going to trust. So I end up back home for the summer in Omaha, Nebraska. And my mom set me up a few weeks later with this guy named Brian. And we were at a baseball game, the College World Series. And I looked at him the second date and I was like, oh my God, you are Ryan. And his last name is Rosen, Ryan Rose. And then I went and dug through my journals and I found 9/24. So I called him. I said, "Hey, is your
Yeah.
birthday September 24th?"
And
And he
did you know? You're like, oh no, it's coming.
did. Yes, and it was real. And that because I had so much doubt. The reason I
Yeah.
share this, I was a skeptic. I'm like, why all of a sudden at 19 can I hear my spirits? And before I couldn't, right?
Yeah.
And it was because I was asking, I was praying because I was so desperate in need of help. And so they responded. And it came through the form of journaling because that's how I was available. And so from that day forward, I did have doubt, because they said, don't go into advertising, go get, go do this work and share your gift with others in the same way. And I thought, no way. It's like coming out of the spiritual closet.
Yes.
And back in 1999, nobody really talked about this.
No.
Not like they
It's
do
even
today.
judged now. Just think
Yeah,
about what it was then, 25 years ago.
it was scary, honestly.
Yeah.
But I knew in my heart how much it helped me and that I needed to share this gift with others. And so I ended up just saying, fine, I'll test it out on strangers. So I had a friend send me some of her friends that I didn't know. Sure enough, it was working. And so that was when I was like, okay, fine, I'll do this. And so advertising was not flowing. Okay. So I went with the flow, but it was in the College of Communications, right? We
Yeah. So
laugh
there you
about
go.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyways, that's how it all started. And then from there, I just said, God guides, use me, bring it to me. And 3 months after playing around with it out of a coffee shop, a woman from the Detroit Jewish News, which is a publication in Michigan, and it goes out to like over 100,000 people. Well, I got a phone call from this woman saying, "Guess what? It's going to be on the cover,"
Oh my gosh.
and that launched my career. And that was back in 2000. And so from there, like the rest is history.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. You mentioned the topic of being raised in a Jewish family. I was raised in a pretty conservative Christian family in like rural Minnesota, and I now live in Lincoln, Nebraska, so not too far from where you grew up. People ask me all the time. I tend to get people that have never had a reading before, and they're really scared about how can I talk to a medium and be religious? Is there any thought you want to share around this idea of spirituality and religion and how they can coexist, or if they can coexist?
Yeah, absolutely. What Spirit has taught me over the years is that there's many paths, but one truth. And
Yeah.
all those paths, it doesn't matter if it's a religious path or a spiritual path, but it's whatever path resonates with you and where you're at on your journey that matters. But at the end of the day, what I believe to be true is that we're all connected. We all have that divinity within us, which is the spark of the divine, which is, you can
Yeah.
call it God, you can call it love, but we all connect at that point. And so you just have to figure out, what's your truth? Because I know for me growing up, I love the traditions, morals, and values Judaism brings, but the actual going to synagogue and going to religious school, it did nothing for me. In
Mm.
fact, it turned me further away from all of that because I was so uninspired by it. And so when I got reconnected to God was through the spiritual path, right? And so I think if religion's amazing, if it works for you,
Yeah.
if it resonates, but if it doesn't, you just have to say, okay, like I don't need a formalized religion and these rules to help me find it. I can access that internally. And, again, everybody's different in terms of what's going to help get them on the path.
Yeah, I love when I do readings for people and their like dad or grandfather will come through and they'll be like, heaven feels like a fishing boat. Like I just love being out on a fishing boat. That's what it feels like for me. And then they're like, oh yeah, that's what he was like in real life too.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's my book. The last book I wrote, What's Your Heaven? And for
Yeah.
some people, it is with Mother Mary and Jesus and Buddha and whoever. And for others, they're on the golf course, they're in Vegas, they're partying with their friends. Like everybody has a different way to find that divinity and that God and that connection.
So one of the things I loved about that book, I've read all of your books, by the way, and I like having them in print form versus digitally. But one of the things I love about What's Your Heaven is you really talk about this idea that heaven isn't like a destination or a place we have to go to, but it's an existence that we can live on earth. We can live in a state of like a heavenly state on earth if we choose to do so. So I was wondering if you could talk about that a little bit and what that means to you.
Yeah, of course. So what Spirit has taught me, this really came up when my dad died because he ended up taking his life, and it's been a while. It's back in 2006. And so since then, they've explained, look, your dad was in a living hell, and heaven or hell isn't a place. It's a feeling. It's a state of mind, and it's a state of being. So you can be alive and be in a living hell or in a heaven on earth. And the same goes for when you cross over. Because, for better or for worse, when we pass on, we pick up where we left off.
Yeah, I
So
know. People don't love to know that.
No, they don't.
I was like, you could be
Right?
in school here or you could be in school there. You pick.
That's right. And there is it's not fun. It's like I say, you can go on summer vacation, and when you cross over, you can go to summer school. And, either way, though, you have to do the work. And
Mm-hmm.
so heaven or hell, it's a state of mind, it's a state of being, it's an energetic frequency. So when you wake up each day and you choose thoughts in the frequency of light and love, you are creating your own heaven on earth.
Yeah.
Nothing's perfect. You're not going to be perfect. And yes, we are humans and we're students in earth school, and we are likely going to make mistakes, but we learn through trial and error. And that's perfect. It's the intention that counts, right? But you can choose from the frequency of light and choose from that place of hope and positivity, all the 5D feelings, right? And love and unity consciousness versus separation and, ego and fear and, greed and all the things that fall into the 3D frequencies.
Yeah.
And that's how you create, what you put out there comes back to you. We attract what we are. We attract our energetic match or vibration. And so it's on us to be conscious and to be present to our lives and make choices consciously from a frequency of love and light, not fear and shadow.
Yeah, I love that. I was just talking to a good friend last night who's going through a really hard breakup, and she's really going through it because she's almost 50 and she's like, I don't want to do this again. I don't want to be alone again. And we had this huge conversation about like, you can choose to, release him and let go of that and attract what you want, or you can choose to live in that chaotic state. You get to choose, and it's your energy that's going to attract the right match. So it was just this like long conversation around, be the way that what you want in someone, work on that for yourself. And that's kind of what I think about like matching an energetic frequency, or the idea of vibrational frequency and energy, and meeting the energy that you want. So if people oftentimes want something, but they're not willing to align to the energy of it, if that makes sense.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Because everything we want to create, if we want to create a heaven on earth, we have to become an energetic match to the things we're asking for, right? Just what you're saying. And all of that's available in the quantum field, right? There is no time or space. It's there now. And if you can conceive of it, it's because there's a part of you on a soul level knowing it's part of your soul contract. Otherwise, you wouldn't know it or desire it.
It wouldn't be there. It wouldn't be a seed planted in you. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so if you want to have that and experience it, you have to bring it into being by becoming a match to it. And that's why, we create our heaven or hell based on an accumulation of things, but it's essentially our daily thoughts and feelings. Everything we're thinking, everything we're saying and doing and feeling, what we constantly like put out to the universe, that becomes our vibrational signature, so to speak.
Yeah, I think it happens to me a lot when people are like, I feel so judged, so misunderstood, so whatever. And then they find themselves also judging themselves and others a lot. So it's almost like they're a super attractor for what they don't want instead of a super attractor for what they do want, So I think that's really powerful advice, to like be the energy that you want. If that's what you want, think it, feel it, believe it, be in that energy of that.
Well, and the other piece of that is we have to take accountability for, again, like not be hard on ourselves, like, oh, here I go again, I'm judging, but have compassion for ourselves. Like, oh, like have a sense of humor. Like, all right, that's that ego in me. Like, how can I do better? And then forgive the person, forgive the situation, forgive yourself. Because then when you forgive, you're not holding grievances. Your vibration isn't low and slow,
Yeah.
right?
I've been doing the Ho'oponopono prayer a lot. I don't know if you ever do that or know
Love
that
that.
prayer. Oh my gosh, I've been doing it nonstop lately. And then every time I do a read, not every time, I'll do readings for people, and at least several times a month, they'll be like, tell them to do the Ho'oponopono prayer. And so it's almost like the things that we learn or we use, then oftentimes like spirit will guide us to
Share it
share it. Do you feel like that happens to you?
all the time. So we'll get on these themes each month, and it's like self-care. I'm like, that's funny. They were just telling me that the other day. And then I have 5 clients in a row. The theme is self-care, or
Yeah.
maybe it's boundaries, or whatever it is. And then I'll take the tools that have worked for me if it comes up if it's appropriate. So I just
Yes.
got off a group reading. I've been using these crystal sound healing bowls, right?
Mm.
And they have been magic for me in terms of like healing on every level of my being. And I kept seeing the bowls for this guy. And I said, God, I'm just going to say it. There's a woman out of Arizona who's teaching me. And he turns out he lives in Arizona.
Of course he does.
And of course he does. And I'm like, you need to go see her because I see the bowls and I know that's your answer. But they'll take, what
Yeah.
resonates for us, our frame of reference. And if it's going to be useful for the person we're working with, of course they're going to want us to share it. And for some people, it doesn't. But
Yeah.
yes, that happens.
So have your abilities enhanced or changed a lot over the course of 25 years? Do you feel like they built on each other, or did you kind of have the clairs that you have and they just intensified? What's that journey been like for you in terms of your own abilities?
It's definitely expanded. The biggest thing that's happened is that the more I relax and trust the process, the easier and clearer my work has gotten. And so in the beginning years, I was so nervous and I was so like, I just felt not qualified. Like, why me? I was not in my power.
Yeah.
And then that took years of doing hundreds, if not thousands of readings to prove this is not me. This is coming through me. And I'm just the humble servant who gets to be the messenger here, right? And so once I built my faith and trust and relaxed, my psychic abilities opened and expanded. It started out as mainly clairaudience. And so for people who saw me back in the day, I was writing, scribbled on a yellow legal pad, these like
Same.
automatic writing. I was getting carpal tunnel.
Oh, I bet.
So I'm like, after a few years, I'm like, I got to put that crutch down and I've got to just like sit, eyeball to eyeball with people and be able to download it, trusting I don't need to write. So my clairaudience then kind of took a backseat, right? I mean, it's always been there and it's always strong. But then I started to rely on my clairvoyance because if I was just looking at you, they would start in my mind's eye showing me visions, kind of like daydreaming.
Hmm.
And so I started to build that clair. And then from there, when I started to trust the process, I was less guarded and my heart opened. So my clairsentience started to build, so I could feel more deeply, and I felt safer being more intimately connected to the person I
Yeah.
was working with. And so it's just a process. And as you grow in age, you mature, but also with experience, you just prove to yourself like this works. And as long as I always say to people that are trying to be a medium or a psychic, as long as you show up with pure intention to
Yeah.
do good and to be of service and keep your ego aside, and you're really here as an open vessel, pure channel, spirit will meet you halfway. You just have to show up and have done your work and then let go and trust how it comes through, which clairs the spirits are going to use. Like, honestly, it's case by case. It really depends on the spirits I'm working with or the person I'm working with because we meet them where they're at,
Yeah.
right? So every reading's different. But yes, in the end, I mean, you would hope after 25 years, like I would have evolved.
Some more intense
But
things intensify.
exactly. Yeah.
So do you one of the things that I think a lot about is like when I'm like doing this work, I think I'm like, how can I prepare? How do I clear myself? Because I find this work to be like it's the most incredible thing ever, but yet it can be like human exhausting. I don't know if that was like that for you at the beginning, or if you have ways that you prepare or ways that you clear energy. Like, how do you keep your human vessel clear?
Yeah. So there's a lot of different things that we can do. Honestly, I go through different phases. So I kind of listen to my body, like, what do I need today? Lately, I'm getting outside, walking, just being in nature and moving my body. That it's the best way, fastest way for me to ground because I'm connecting to the frequencies, the human resonance, especially when I can take my shoes off and go walk.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody is lucky enough to live at the beach, like go put your feet in the sand and or just in the grass, like that for me clears me. If I've had a really heavy day of readings, I just go sit or lay in the grass for 20 minutes and I feel completely healed. It's like the earth
Oh, nice.
absorbs it. Yeah. My crystal sound healing bowls, those are so magical. They found their way into my life a few months ago. A client of mine gifted me these bowls and they have changed my energy. I'm not tired anymore.
That's
But it's
amazing.
sound healing. It's powerful. It's like energy medicine.
Yeah,
And just playing the bowls, it clears my field. It aligns my chakras. Um, that for me is right now the fastest way. I'm still in awe. I walk around, I can do 8 hours of readings and I use my bowls at the beginning and the end, and I feel fine.
that's amazing.
It's
I
amazing.
cannot I cannot say the same.
Right. Well, and I have to say, I have my days where I don't feel that way, but it's usually because I haven't used my tools. It's not
Yeah.
the best bowls. And I always tell people if you can't get your hands on real bowls, there's so many great recordings on YouTube or
Mm-hmm.
any place you can find online. But you can also, everybody's different in how they clear. But for me, salt baths or just even washing your hands in salt water, just like our crystals are, we're giant crystals. Our chakras are crystals, and salt clears energy. Some people like to use like certain incense or sage. These are all different levels that it reaches. So you have to figure out what works for you. And the last thing I would say, honestly, the most important is when I run my energy. So I imagine color frequency. So if I've had a really exhausting day, I run royal blue and I ask that it be flooded through every level and layer of my being because that's deprogramming and cleansing. And then I pour in gold. So for me, I'm very visual. So I just visualize the colors and then that seems to, bring my energy back.
Do you have those on your website? Am I making that up? Okay.
Yeah, I do. So I
Okay.
created a whole program called
Yeah.
Team It, Run It, Tap It, and it includes all of that because they're tools you can use on a daily basis to ground, connect, protect, and clear your energy. And it really is just figure out the tools that work for you and build a practice. If you it's like working out. You can't go to the gym one day a week if you want to change your body, right? You've
Yeah.
got to do the work and do it several times a week and build the muscles.
Yeah. One of the other things I wanted to talk to you about, because do you have four kids? How many? Can't
We have
remember.
6 kids.
Oh, you have
Yeah,
six kids. Okay.
that's a lot. But right.
Just a few more than four. Okay. So you have six kids. Have you always freely talked to them about what you do? Has that changed over the years? Like, how do you raise kids having this be the job that you have? And I'm sure sometimes you get intuitive guidance about how to parent them. Like, what is it like being a medium and a mama?
Well, yeah, yeah. You should ask my kids. They
I
love
know.
it. No. So I was doing this work before I had babies. So this has just always been a normal, natural part of my life, right? And
Yeah.
so they've grown up around it. My boys in particular, they all my okay, so I have three of my own, and we have a blended family. But all 6 kids have been incredibly open, supportive, and receptive. They're not into it. Like one of them, I would say, is super intrigued and into it, and then the rest could probably care less. But they respect it, and that's what I love. And they've watched me perform, and it's undeniable. They're like, Mom, like you have superpowers. Like there's no way you could do this or know this because they know me as a human, and I'm not that interesting as a human. But when it's not me and it's what spirit's working through me and they witness it, it again, it's undeniable, and they respect it. So then when I say, "Hey, by the way, if you're asking me, I suggest you do this because this is what's worked for me," like a spirit suggestion on if they're struggling with a relationship, with a friendship, or a health issue or whatever it is, they usually listen, which is amazing to me. And then
Yeah.
they'll in their own way, like my I have 4 of them are in college right now, so they're at that level, they're becoming adults, and my son, he calls me all the time, he's like, "Mom, oh my God, I had a Rebecca moment." And he told me this amazing thing where he thought of this person, he hadn't talked to him in a year, and he bumped into them on campus, and then they opened a door for him, a connection. And I said, "Jacob, you're in the flow. This is what it is." And so now that he's experiencing it, he's interested, right? But I love it so much. And I love that I get to empower them that, hey, this all started the age my kids in college, they're all sophomores now. This is when it all began for me. And I only wish I would have had somebody to talk to about this, right? And so it's so exciting to me to say, you have all the answers you need within you. And I was telling Jacob, here's what I think you should do next. I think he's so ADD, God love him, and OCD. He cannot sit still and meditate. But I'm like, go for a walk. Just go walk campus. And I want you to mentally talk to your guides. And he loved it. So it is really useful because then I'm like, Spirit, I need to meet my kid where he's at. And I don't want to overwhelm him, but I want to speak to him in a way that I can help him to connect with you, right?
Yes. I
It's very
have
empowering.
I was, for me, my abilities awakened in my 40s, so it was different. I was already a mama, and I was like, oh my God, like I'm in corporate America. This, I don't know how I'm going to do all this. This is wild. But when I talked to my daughter, I had to explain to her kind of what was going on. And I was honestly a little scared. I was like, I don't want to freak her out, but I'm like out in the world now. Like, I don't want her to find out about this from somebody other than me, you know?
Right.
But I was really scared to talk to her. So I did. And then, sure enough, of course, she has some of her own abilities that she told me, things that have happened to her. And I was like, oh my gosh, I never would have known these things if I didn't just trust and surrender and have this conversation with her. And then, and then I wanted to talk to her about it all the time. She's like, Mom, we don't have to talk about this all the time. We can talk about something else. So then I kind of like let it go. And then now she's like, I think you should like do a reading for me. I'd love to know what that's like, Mom. So I haven't done it yet, but I thought that was kind of cool.
I love
But but I also love like obviously we're moms, so we have our own mom abilities and then intuitive abilities too. But we have a Kohl's not very far from our house, but she's not supposed to go in there. But she loves to go in there. They like to go to the bathroom in there when they're riding their bikes and whatever. And so I could tell she went into Sephora and had perfume on, and I was like, Zara Leela, did you go into Kohl's? And she's like, um, I maybe. And I was like, you know what I do for a living, right? Like you're not gonna be able to trick me. Little did she know it was just that she smelled like perfume from
right.
Sephora. So like I just used my own mom abilities. But do you have that where you kind of can intuitively tell, or do you try to not do that? Like how does that work with you and your kiddos?
That's a great question. And what I do is, yes, it's always on. And every person has intuition, and especially
Yes.
mother's intuition. Okay.
Yes.
And so we all have this gift. I just do it for a living. You do it for a living. So I trust it more and I recognize it immediately. And so this has happened a lot with my kids where they'll be lying and I know they're lying. And I sense it. I feel it in my bones, even though like they're doing a really good job trying to
Very
convince.
convincing. Yeah.
And so I just honestly, I kind of let them come to their own truth. Like I don't push them. I just kind of look at them and they know the look I give them. I'm like, uh-huh, you're not, getting this past me. Like I am on to you. But I'm not a helicopter parent. Like I
Yeah,
want
I'm
to
not
give them
either.
space and grace
Yeah.
to figure it out and do the right thing. And they usually always do. Like they may lie for the first day and then they come to me like, okay, Mom, you're right. I'm like, I know, I knew I was. I was just waiting for you to find the courage, to do the right thing. And so I think we lead by example,
Yeah.
and kids are going to be kids and they're not always going to be honest. But when I get stuff, the other thing I would say is I think boundaries are super important. So even if I'm getting things, I don't always share it because I don't know that they want to hear it or they're ready to hear it. it's the same way I treat clients. I'm like, okay, spirit, if I meant to share this, please tell me. But if not, help me, phrase it in a way they can hear it or
Yeah.
don't. And so I'm very respectful of that because it's really not about us, it's about them. We want
Yes,
to be
exactly.
helpful, right? Not
Yeah.
hurtful.
Yeah, you want them to become who they're meant to be,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I'm going to learn from her and she's going to learn from me. Like we chose each other in that way.
And they are our greatest polishing stones. Yes.
That's a good way to say that.
Yeah.
So, does it ever happen for you when you do a reading where you see something, maybe it's something traumatic that happened in their life or things like that, and they're using it as a frame of reference for you, but they don't necessarily want you to say it? It's like, here, now say this. Like, has that ever happened to you where they show you something that maybe wouldn't be helpful to share with them, but the piece after that they tell you is what you're supposed to channel? Does that make sense?
It does make sense because that just happened in a group. So if I see it, I share it. But how I deliver it is different. Sometimes it falls out of my mouth and it is so direct. I'm like, by the way, your husband's cheating on you. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I just said that. And she goes, no, literally said, Dad, you better tell me, is he cheating on me? Like,
Oh,
so then they confirm Spirit just dropped the bomb because they didn't want it candy coated. They want it direct, right?
yeah.
Versus I'll see the same thing, but then I'm like, okay, so your husband's lying by omission. There's things he's leaving out. Like they kind of dance around it.
Yeah.
And then we get to the same conclusion, but in a much gentler, safer way so that they can receive it. Does that make sense?
It absolutely does. Have they ever shown you things like maybe they show that there was darkness in their past, but they don't want to show you what it is, just so that you're
Yeah.
like, I'm asking because it's happened to me before where they've shown me like they're not going to tell me all the details, but they're showing me like maybe abuse in their childhood or like something traumatic that happened to them because there's like a message that they're wanting to share to them, but they won't always like show me the details. Or maybe they'll show me like the house they grew up and it's really dark in color or something like that. Like,
Yeah, I always tell people I wish it was as real as like a movie. It's not that sometimes detailed. Sometimes you just get a feeling. It's very vague, very subtle. I'll see, like you said, just like one dark image, but then I have to figure out, fill in the blanks. Like, I don't know what this means, right? And what Spirit has shown me is either I'm not receiving it because it's such a mismatch vibrationally, it's so
yeah.
dark that they're protecting me
Mm-hmm.
that I only need to know so much, but I don't want to go too deep into it because what we focus on expands, and I really,
Exactly.
right? Um, or that person is only needing to hear a certain amount of information, and if I receive it, I share it.
Yeah.
So if they don't give it to me, it's because that person isn't ready or needing to receive it. And so you just have to trust, work with what comes. And if it's just a snapshot of it, there's a reason you picked up on that, and maybe that's
Mm-hmm.
all you need. You don't need to do a deep dive into it.
Yeah. I like one time I had this girl's very close with her grandpa, and he showed me like a dark cloud over their house, like an actual dark cloud. And it was not him. Like he didn't do anything, but he learned when he passed things that had happened to her in his home. And so he was like acknowledging, like, hey, I'm so sorry this happened I didn't know it in human form. Like it happened on my watch. I feel responsible for you.
Yeah.
And it was like a really healing experience for her. But I normally don't have that heavy of readings in that way. But I just trusted that that was what she needed to hear at that time. And it really was a healing thing for her. She was like, I always wondered if he knew.
Oh yeah. No, if
Yeah.
it comes through, and I'm sure you do the same. I pray for the highest truth and highest
Yes.
healing and highest good. And if it comes through, there's healing in that.
Well, I
But
happen to have a really good mentor who I could model after in terms of like putting yourself in protective light for the highest and best good, all of those things that really did help me too. I also tried on different names like psychic medium, spiritual medium, and I don't know. Well, I do know why, but I always came back to spiritual medium because I really love working in angel energy and it feels so aligned for me. Is that why do you call yourself a spiritual medium versus a psychic medium? Because the most of the world would call you a psychic medium if they were describing what you do.
Yeah, it's kind of all the same. But the
Yeah, I
reason
agree.
I intentionally changed it in the beginning years, I was psychic medium, and then I intentionally changed it because I thrive on mediumship. I that is my bread and butter. I love it so much. That's why the guides are using me. I absolutely am psychic. You know, all mediums are psychic, not all psychics are mediums, right? So I absolutely do psychic readings, but I really don't want to draw people just for psychic predict my future,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
really believe you co-create your future. And yeah, I can read probable timelines in your soul contract and tell you this is probably going to happen and that's probably going to happen, but you have free will and you have the free will power to create that or to change gears and do something totally different. So I like spiritual because it's simply saying, look, we are tapping into the divine energy, the spiritual connection that we all have, and I'm going to be a messenger for you, a medium, right? And
Yeah.
it may talk about your future, we may talk about your past and your present, but it's not just psychic doing like reading your cards.
Yeah.
I just thought people, need to be clear. Look, if you really want a psychic reading, or go see somebody who does tarot reading or who
Yeah.
specifically thrives on psychic prediction reading.
Yeah, exactly. A good friend of mine does that for businesses. She like
Oh, that's
channels your business energy and does all psychic readings for what you're meant to do in your business. I'm like,
I
what a
love
fun
it.
job.
I
Yeah.
love that.
Okay, one of my favorite things to do is just rapid fire, and I just ask you your favorite things and you just tell me whatever comes to mind. So I do this with every guest that comes on the podcast. Okay.
Okay, I've done
All
it.
right. So, what is your favorite food?
My everyone in my family would say butter. I know it sounds so.
It's not.
Since I was a baby, I love butter. So any chance I get to eat butter. No, my very favorite food would be French fries or chocolate chip cookies. I don't usually indulge in all that. And if I had to pick like a category, I would say sushi.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. What is your favorite place to travel, or if you could pick your next place, like your next dream destination, where would you go?
Anywhere with a beach, and ideally, I really want to go to the South Pacific. So like Bali, Fiji, that area.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you vacation a lot, or not as much as you maybe could?
Not as much as I could, only because we've had so many children, and now my life is getting a little easier. Four of them are away. And so we're just now realizing, oh my God, we can probably get back to, because we used to travel a lot when Chris and I first got together 12 years ago, but then we kind of stopped because of life.
Yeah.
So I love traveling, but I also am a homebody. I love my house. So the balance between the two.
Is it hard for you to be in airports or airplanes or things like that with every?
I mean, you too. Like,
Yeah, and I feel like I always sit down next to somebody who like desperately needs a reading, and I'm like, oh, okay, here we go. Where they're like,
also,
will you please tell me this one thing?
it's
You
so
know?
funny you say that because so many times I've been on airplanes where I say what I do and then they do not stop talking. And I'm the kind of person I like to put my AirPods in and like leave me alone. I have 2 hours
Yeah.
with myself. So I just started saying I'm a therapist
Oh, nice.
because then they don't ask me questions. They
Do
just leave.
you? I'll get back to my favorite things. Do you tell people freely what you do, or do you sometimes not? Like, let's say you're at like a PTO fundraiser at your kid's school or whatever. Does everybody know what you do?
Everyone knows what I do in my community, but if like I'm a stranger in a strange place, I read the room. If it feels like it's the right vibe and they'd be receptive, I share. But if I feel like I'm gonna have to defend it, or then I usually don't. I'll say I'm an author, and hopefully they don't ask I'm what.
Yeah. You're like on, very
I'll help.
deep, interesting topics on
Yeah,
helping you become your best self. Yeah.
exactly.
Okay, what is your favorite holiday?
Um, the 4th of July,
Mine too.
is it?
Yeah, no one says that ever.
That's so funny. I know because I love summer. It's right after my birthday, and I love fireworks. So just the light.
Yeah, I do too. I grew up in Minnesota. We go to northern Minnesota, and I illegally stop in South Dakota and like fill the truck with like all sorts of fireworks, and we have our own fireworks show. We've been doing it forever since I was a
That's
little kid.
so fun.
My
Yeah.
aunt and uncle used to drive from California and do it, and then now it's my duty. Ever since I moved to Nebraska, it's like, well, you got to go through those fireworks states. So
And I'm
you
sure your spirits are really happy. You're carrying on the legacy.
Yeah, I think so. And I just love them. I was like, this might be slightly illegal in my state, but they're so beautiful.
I
So it's
know.
fine. Yeah. So whenever I go to Colorado, sometimes we'll go up to the mountains of Colorado with my in-laws, and you're not allowed to have fireworks up there. Like it's
Right.
really, really illegal, like just because of fires and stuff. And I'm always so sad. I miss it.
I
So
know. I
yeah.
know.
Yeah. Okay. What about your favorite animal or spirit animals? Do you feel like spirit animals come through for you ever?
All the time. So mine is the jaguar. So it's funny because I've been resisting getting a cat. I had one 20 some years ago. And then we've had dogs ever since. And then my daughter, the last few years, has been begging me for a cat. And then I would have dreams about my spirit animal, the jaguar, coming to me. And then I didn't do this. My husband randomly, he's like, look, we're getting this cat, and here's how it's through a work colleague, and it's a special cat. This cat is like my incarnated spirit animal. My husband laughs. He comes and he sleeps on my head, on my neck, and he's doing something with my nervous system. Like his purring is healing me.
Nice.
Yeah, it's amazing. Anyways, I adore my cat now, but it first came introduced as the spirit totem. And we all have a spirit animal. And
Yes.
right, it's kind of cliche, but we really do. We can get to know it.
Yes, mine is an eagle. So whenever I'm
Oh,
so love it. And I'll visualize, like sometimes I'll do visualizations and I'll like see myself like going up into the skies and we stare at each other's eyes and stuff.
I
Yeah.
love
So
that.
whenever I see them in real life, like this is actually crazy. My daughter was out in northern Minnesota on a paddleboard with my dad, with her grandpa, and a bald eagle came right in front of them, swooped down and grabbed a fish out of the water and flew off, like within like feet of them.
That's amazing.
She's like, that was so cool. I'm like, girl, you don't even know. Most people will never see that in their entire life, and you're 10 and you got to see that.
Right.
That's so cool.
It's
Yeah.
incredible.
Okay. What is your favorite thing about what you do for a living?
The relief it brings people.
Oh,
I know you see this, but I see them physically. It's like visibly they melt. Like when they know their loved one is okay and that they're not really gone, you just see this weight melt off of them energetically. And oh God, it's just so, I just feel so lucky and grateful that I get to bring people that sense of comfort. Um, so yeah, 100%. That's why I do it.
what brings you profound joy?
Freedom. Anytime that I feel like I am free to wake up and just do whatever I want or need to do, and not what I have to do or what I should do. And so, what I'm learning is, again, I'm relearning, like reparenting my inner child, because I think I grew up a little too fast in a household with a narcissistic father. And so I have like trauma in my nervous system from that I've been working through. And now what I'm realizing is when I can get in touch with my inner child, then I feel a lot of joy because children naturally are playful. They're in the moment, they're present, right? And I
Yeah.
think we as adults, adulting causes us to kind of lose some of that joy, and we sometimes dim our light. That's funny. The kid I was just talking about is calling me right now.
That's
It's
how
my
that
oldest.
goes.
But anyways, yeah.
What advice would you give people that are like, okay, like you've perked my interest. Maybe I'm not quite ready to go to a medium, but I am wanting to strengthen my connection with my guides or team in spirit. I want to start trusting my intuition a little bit more. Where would you tell them to start or what they can do to grow in that way?
Yeah, I would say start by having a conversation, whether it's out loud or just sincerely from your heart, and just say, okay, I want to believe and I want to connect. So show me a sign. And then either ask to see a sign and that whatever first thing comes to you, or designate a sign. Say, I want to see an eagle, right? And then let go. And then when you see your sign, I guarantee you're going to see it in the next few hours or days in ways you cannot make up. Like you didn't go look for it. It found its way organically into your life. Then you start to release doubt and you start to open. And in that opening, there's room for more miracles and more synchronicity and more magic to happen. And that, I think, ultimately is what gets people interested in, like, wow, there must be something bigger than me orchestrating some of this, because like that, what are the odds of that happening, right?
Yeah.
So I think you just start by playing with it and not saying prove it, but essentially like bring me a reason to trust and have faith.
Yeah. Show me.
Show me.
Yeah.
Show me next steps, show me a sign, whatever it is. So I would say start that way. And then when you're ready to go deeper, invite spirit into your dreams. When you go to sleep at night, or sit down and meditate, or go for a walk and say, I'm doing a moving meditation. Spirit, talk to me. And it may not come through words. It may come through a feeling or through a visual, or just something
Or
that comes to you.
numbers or license plates.
Exactly.
You get lots of license plates.
I do.
Yeah. What advice would you give someone if they're like, I'm opening myself up in this way and I believe it, but I'm with somebody that doesn't? How do you help people navigate that when they're just maybe on a different human timeline than someone else in that way?
I know that feeling, because when this all started for me, my whole family was looking at me cross-eyed. And I just,
Yep.
I just felt so like alone in it. And then anytime I shared, I ended up defending it, and it like burst my bubble, and it was such a downer. So I got real clear. I'm only going to share this with people who have an open mind. They don't have to be into it or even fully believing. They just need to be respectful and just hold space for me to, share my experience. But even better is when you can find people who match your vibe and who are kind of like on the same wavelength. So just be discerning on who you open up to and how much you share. Don't overshare with the people that you know are going to poo-poo it.
Because it really hurt my feelings for a long time. And then I realized like, oh, I can hold space for someone who can't hold space for me. And that's okay.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't personalize it. And you see, honestly, at the end of the day, they're just threatened.
Or they don't understand it, or it scares them or makes them fearful in some way. Yeah. And it really isn't about you. That's what I believe anyway. Yeah.
It's not about you.
They're
in some way projecting their stuff onto you. So you just have to say, that's all right.
And I like send them love. Like I'll put them like, they're angels, like send them some love, put them in a bubble of light. But it also is like I think a good reminder for me when people don't accept this part of who I am, they just don't get as big of a seat at my table.
That's right.
That's how I look at it anyway.
Exactly. You want the people at your table who speak the same language.
Yeah. Who would just root for you.
Exactly.
Yeah, 100%. Well, it's been such an honor for me having gone to you as my medium and your books and all the ways in which you have helped me to learn in this space. And I'm so grateful for you. How can people follow you or work with you? In what ways can people find their way to you? I'm sure they know who you are, but if for some reason they don't, what types of ways can they work with you?
So I'm offering a lot of Zoom small group readings right now, which are magical. The right people come together and it's like minds connect and you get direct readings. I'm doing some exclusive one-on-ones, which are private readings essentially. So everything you need from me. I'm also doing a large event where it's a few hundred people on Zoom. It's a large audience, a Zoom event. That's a really safe way to sit back and witness it if you're not ready for a one-on-one. But everything can be found on my website, RebeccaRosen.com. Social media, it's at Medium Rebecca Rosen.
And your podcast too, which I just love. You got, season 3. Yeah, Small, Medium, at Large out. I'm almost through all of it. So I love that. And we'll have to maybe talk about this the next time, but I love when you get channeled messages from the Trinity or, divine light. And so I really would encourage people to go listen to your podcast. And there's so much wisdom and magic in there. So I really appreciate the light that you're shining in the world and how you're helping all of us. And so from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Thank you for coming on the podcast and sharing your wisdom with us.
Well, this has been amazing. And I'm so proud of you. You have honored the call and it's exactly what you're supposed to be doing. So thank you for sharing your life.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.